Welcome to Master the Game. I am Juice, and today I am discussing Heroes Unlimited and why I think this is such a good superheroes game. So let's get started. So Heroes Unlimited is a game that I got into back in 1997. My very first book was either the blue version of this or TMNT. I can't really remember. There was a neighborhood guy who was a friend of the family who was really into Palladium Books, especially Riffs, and he actually gave me the TMNT book. My mom bought me the blue book Heroes Unlimited. It was really close together, probably within a couple weeks. But again, I don't remember which one I had first. I remember buying my first set of dice. I had a green dice bag, and none of my dice matched because I went to Writer's Hobby and I hand-picked each one I wanted. And I bought probably way too many dice for what I needed. And yeah, but I got a lot of dice that I loved, right? Then later on, I got this for Easter. The Easter Bunny brought me this. Yay. And that was 1997. In fact, it still has the sticker from Writer's Hobby. So I used this book, and you can see it's seen better days. I mean, it's a little beat up. But this book, I created a ton of characters. I loved, in fact, the other book, the blue book, I created a ton of characters out of that. And I actually prefer the blue book's equipment section to this by a long shot. But I created so many characters. Some of my favorite characters were like hardware characters or robotics. Anything that let me carefully craft something. In that aspect, at that age, I loved the crunchiness of that aspect of the game because I couldn't find groups to just play any RPG. And so for me, creating a character was a lot of fun. I had folders full of these characters. And I made characters that were a lot like the X-Men. X-Men growing up was my favorite cartoon. You know, Wolverine was my favorite character, but I loved the stories of the X-Men. You know, the animated series back then was great, which it's now on Disney Plus, and I love it. I've got the opportunity to share my love of that with my son, and hopefully my daughter will get into it, you know, as well. So she's 8 years old. He's 4. I probably shouldn't be showing it to a 4-year-old, but, you know. But I felt like I could make almost every single character with just this core book. It wasn't until many years later that I knew that there were Powers Unlimited books, and I started buying those. Actually, they may have even been Christmas presents in like 2010. But the Powers Unlimited books opened up a whole bunch of ideas and opportunities for more characters. And now you really can create almost any superhero from any comic book, TV show, whatever that you can imagine. Which is, again, really exciting to me. Now, there are limitations, you know, the maximum strength the guy can lift things and things like that. But the premise still stands. You can make the concept of any character you can imagine. And that's the most exciting aspect of this game to me. You can make street-level heroes all the way up to cosmic-level heroes. You can make normal people. It's all really cool. And there's no emphasis on balance with the system, so you can have, you know, your X-Men next to a human Punisher. You know, you can have Magneto doing crazy magnetized powers and crushing submarines, you know, if your DM will allow that, or GM, if your GM will allow that. Or you can have, again, alongside him, somebody who literally just shapeshifts and that's it. Very different powers, very different types of games that they are beneficial in, and that's cool. Now, there are some downsides to the book, or to the system. You know, there's not, in the core book, there's no emphasis on how to structure a adventure. So if you are somebody who really doesn't watch a lot of supers movies or shows or read comic books, you might not really understand what tells a good superhero story. There's no villains in here. There's no sample characters. There's none of that. And I think there's opportunity in the book for that. But I use quick, fast rules for that I think make it simple. If I'm making a bad guy, typically they have between 20 and 30 SDC. They might have between 6 and 15 hit points. And that's about it. They don't really get any bonuses. That is my basic level, NPC. That's what they are. And then as I need it, I'll give them skills and things like that and equipment. So that's how I balance it out. They're obviously weaker than anything you're going to roll in here. But even like your basic hero will have 30 SDC, assuming you didn't take like things like physical skills to beef them up. I have played this with my wife and my sister and her husband, and I've played it online. And if you have a game master who runs the game very loosely, isn't such a stickler for the rules, goes with the rule of cool, you can have an amazing time with this game. We've had some very comedic characters over the years, and we've had some very serious characters over the years. My first character was a glass alien who was crashing to Earth. And as his ship was crashing to Earth, he saw in satellite feed pickups WCW Monday Nitro with Sting, the Crow Sting. So his disguise kit as a glass alien, he'd stick his face in this machine and it'd pop face paint on and the hair on, and he was able to fashion some clothes that looked like a black trench coat and a baseball bat and a scorpion shirt. And because he was an alien just coming to Earth, he thought this was a normal thing. There were other masked characters and painted characters, so he thought this was what Earth was based on satellite feed pickups. So yes, it was very silly. I played him seriously because I was 12 and thought he was just cool. And my friend was playing a super soldier with like a blaster out of his hand but could run really fast. And the idea was him and some other characters were coming to rescue me as I crashed from an organization that was trying to take me in and experiment on me. So they saved me. The next session 2, we got sucked into, or maybe it was the end of session 1, we got sucked into a rift and ended up in Rift's Earth. And I think we played like one more session in Rift's Earth. I was bummed that we ended up in Rift's Earth. I really, 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 really wanted to play a superheroes game. And we ended up in Rifts, trying to find our way home. And I remember even leading up to it saying I didn't really want to play Rifts. It sounded like there was a lot to it. And it was silly. I mean, I was 12. What do I know, right? My friend was also 12, but then our GM was like 26, I think. Was an older guy who grew up on Palladium Books. And again, this was 97, and he had been playing since the 80s. Now, this book alone, you can make a lot of different characters. I'm just going to quickly spout off some of the things. So in here, there's different types of characters, right? You can play let's see, I'll go through the power categories. Alien, which again I think is a lot of fun. There's a lot of different types of aliens from different types of looking, different planets they're from, and you have random tables for everything, which I think adds a lot to the game. The game, I believe, if I'm remembering correctly, and we just didn't play it this way, but you're meant to roll all your stuff out, all of it. And we used to allow you to come to the table with a concept, and then we just build the character around the concept. But a lot of people will tell you online that you're supposed to roll everything. I've seen it a lot over the years. So anyways, you have the aliens, you have bionics, cyborgs, like imagine the Terminator, for example. Or you might have a human character like Cyborg, where he's part robot, part human, You have an experiments category where it's kind of like a mutant, except you started as a human and you were experimented on and you became this thing, right? Again, you can roll on the tables for who experimented on you and things like that. That's where the super soldier option comes into play. Imagine Captain America. He was a normal person. He volunteered through the military. They experimented on him. He became Captain America. Through super soldier option, you might get cybernetics. You might get a lot of different things. Now, one of my favorites is a hardware category. The hardware category has you have the electrical genius, the mechanical genius, the analytical genius, and a weapons expert. Now, basically, you're like an inventor, except you're not. In the Powers Unlimited books, they have an inventor. You're basically somebody who knows a lot about these different things. You can try to create or build something. It's very difficult to do it correctly, even with these specialties. You can fix or repair things, all that stuff is really cool. Now, I always liked the weapons expert. For example, you can make and modify weapons. You are more proficient with these weapons. It's just basically, I envision it almost being like a mix of like Batman mixed with like the Punisher. You might be able to fabricate your weapons and do some things with the weapons, like Batman does with some of his gadgets. But you're as proficient as, say, the Punisher, right? So that's kind of cool. There's also building like super vehicles and stuff. The time it takes is a long time. The money it takes, all this stuff in this game is really difficult. But hardware characters can be really cool. I tend to, in the past, give player groups a hardware or inventor NPC. And then they can say, I really want this. And so over time, maybe they get the thing they want. But it takes a long time. There's magic characters, whether it's they get their magical abilities from a weapon or they can cast spells. Very different types of characters. If you get your magical abilities from a weapon, that could be casting spells, or it could be super abilities, kind of like Green Lantern's ring, or things like that. So there's a lot of cool things right there that, again, allow you to make some interesting characters. Let's see, mutants. Mutants are cool. You get random tables to roll on for your appearance. When you developed your powers, how you got your powers, or discovered your powers, things like that. How many powers you get, because there's major superpowers, there's minor superpowers. You can get a lot. As a mutant, I believe, and maybe as an experiment, over time, you can get more powers too. That's the only way to get more powers in this game, technically, by the rules as written. You can create mutant animals. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, for example. You can take an animal, and there's a way to do it. I would look at the After the Bomb books. I don't own the After the Bomb books. I would love to own them, but I don't. I just have the core TMNT and Other Strangeness book. And with that, there's some good rules on how to create your own mutant animal. You take a base animal based on the size of it and things like that, and you get so many points that you can use to convert it to humanoid or keep it as its style and give it abilities and allow it to have hands to grab things, or keep it with its animal paws and not grab things. Like, you can spend these points and turn it into what you want. It's really cool, actually. There's the Mega Hero, which takes all these types of heroes and then makes them more powerful. Thor is a good example of a Mega Hero, for example. In fact, my wife had a character built like Thor once, and we played just her and I for a little bit, and that was a lot of fun. Physical training power category. Imagine somebody who just works out like crazy, and they have reached peak physical fitness and can just do some cool stuff. That's your physical training power category. Your strongman competitors, your Olympic athletes, record-setting athletes, That's your physical training power category. Psionics. Now, psionics, I've never played a psionics character. I've never had a player play a psionics character in any of my games, but it works similar to how Magic does in this. Now, it's not your Vancian Magic from like your Dungeons and Dragons and stuff. You get points per day to spend on your spells or your psionic abilities, which are two different things. They're called two different things. One is your inner strength points. One is your potential psychic energy. And they work similarly but different. You have different abilities for each type, whatever. But a lot of people like it. However, the downside is, and my understanding is that they're not as powerful as just always having your super abilities. So you're making an inferior character, typically. But if you like the flavor, it's still cool. Robotics. Basically, you can build robots. The thing that's weird about this is if you don't do the AI programming, you're basically making a mindless robot. I've heard of some pretty crazy builds that people have made because you roll for your budget and then you spend the money to build whatever you want. I've seen people make robotic vehicles, imagine Transformers without the transforming, and that's their robotics character. And to me, that just doesn't sound fun because you're just a vehicle. You're not even able to talk or communicate. So I don't know what the motivation is there. I've never had somebody do that in my games. I've just read about it online. But there are some cool things you can do. You can build an android, and they can do a lot of cool stuff. And they don't have some of the downsides, like breathing and things like that. There's special training characters, which is a lot like your physical training and your hardware, but different. They are typically normal characters, but you have it's called the Ancient Master. It's your well-trained martial artist who knows everything about martial arts, is extremely powerful when it comes to hand-to-hand combat. And maybe even some weapons. In fact, I think the Ancient Master, from when I first saw it when I was a kid, I was like, oh, this is so cool. But I think you have, it automatically makes you a high-level character, which is weird. It makes sense for the flavor of the character, but there's no build-up to becoming an Ancient Master, so that's kind of weird. It's almost like you should be able to be like Ancient Master in training at level 1 up to being an Ancient Master. There's the Hunter Vigilante, which is much more like Batman, for example. You have the Secret Operative, the Stage Magician, the Super Sleuth. So those are all the main player or character types in Heroes Unlimited. There's a lot of them. They're pretty cool. Creating a character in the system is a lot of fun. I really think that there is not a superhero game that I have played, which hasn't been that many, that has the depth that this does. The skill selection is ridiculous in Palladium Books. That's actually, in my opinion, what takes the longest to create a character. It's skill selection. But creating the other parts of the character are a lot of fun. You can make crazy superheroes, and you can really flesh out a character with a lot of detail. And I don't know of other games like that when it comes to supers. I've only tried a few, such as Margaret Weis Marvel Heroic Role Playing, which is a dice pool game. That game really didn't appeal to me that much. I like being able to really create a character. I love the options. Options are huge for me as a player. That's one of my favorite things about RPGs. I love to build things and create things. I think I'm a creative person. And so that's what appeals to me with the Supers game. And I really feel like Heroes Unlimited, with that, does a really good job. For this series, we're going to dive into how to play it, how to create characters. I'm going to try and teach you guys everything you need to know about Heroes Unlimited. So if this sounds like something you want to watch, be sure to smash that subscribe button, hammer that like button, and leave a comment below with some of your questions as we do this series. If you've played the game and you've got stories to share, I want to hear about them. Again, leave it in the comments below. This is Master the Game. I am Juice. Game on.